The stagecoach lurched to a violent halt outside Sierra Vista, Arizona territory, and Zelda Emerson tumbled forward, her left arm snapping against the wooden seat with a sickening crack that echoed through the cramped interior. Pain exploded through her body, white-hot and devastating, stealing her breath and turning her vision into a kaleidoscope of stars. She bit down hard on her bottom lip to keep from screaming, tasting copper as blood filled her mouth. The other passengers, a portly merchant and his thin wife, gasped in alarm as Zelda cradled her arm against her chest, feeling the unnatural angle of bone beneath her skin. "Miss, are you hurt?" the merchant's wife asked, her voice high with concern. Zelda could only nod, tears streaming down her cheeks despite her best efforts to remain composed. She had traveled nearly 2,000 miles from Boston to marry a man she had never met, leaving behind a life of loneliness and hardship after her parents had died in a fire that had destroyed their boarding house. The letters from Vincent Owens had promised her a fresh start, a home, and perhaps eventually affection if not love. Now here she was, arriving broken and damaged, surely an unwanted burden. The driver yanked open the door, his weathered face creasing with worry as he took in the scene. "What happened?" "The lady's hurt her arm when we stopped," the merchant explained. "Looks bad." "I will be fine," Zelda managed through gritted teeth, though she knew it was a lie. The pain was intensifying, spreading from her arm throughout her entire body in waves that made her stomach churn. She had never broken a bone before, but there was no mistaking the sensation. "We need to get you to Doc Miller," the driver said, reaching in to help her out of the coach. "Can you stand?" Zelda nodded, letting him guide her down the steps with her good arm. Her legs felt like water, but she forced herself to remain upright. She was 22 years old, and she had survived worse than this. The fire that took her parents had also scarred her emotionally, leaving her with nightmares and a bone-deep fear of being alone. That was why she had answered Vincent Owens's advertisement for a bride, why she had packed her few belongings and boarded a train heading west into unknown territory. Sierra Vista sprawled before her in the harsh afternoon sunlight, a collection of wooden buildings lining a dusty main street. Mountains rose in the distance, purple and imposing against the brilliant blue sky. The air was different here, dry and hot, nothing like the humid summers of Boston. Despite her pain, Zelda felt a flutter of something that might have been hope. This would be her home now. "Which one of you is Miss Emerson?" a deep voice asked, and Zelda turned to see a tall man approaching from across the street. He was broad-shouldered and lean, with dark hair that curled slightly at his collar and eyes the color of whiskey. He wore dusty work clothes and a gun belt slung low on his hips, and he moved with the easy confidence of someone who knew his place in the world. "I am," Zelda said, trying to straighten despite the agony in her arm. "Are you Vincent Owens?" "Yes, madam." He tipped his hat, then his eyes focused on the way she was holding her arm. His expression shifted from polite greeting to immediate concern. "What happened?" "The stagecoach stopped suddenly, and I fell against the seat. I think my arm is broken." Even saying the words made her feel faint. What must he think of her now, this bride he had paid good money to bring west, arriving injured and needy? Vincent's jaw tightened, and he closed the distance between them in 3 long strides. "Let me see." "I do not want to be a trouble," Zelda protested weakly. "You are not a trouble. You are hurt, and that matters more than anything else right now." His voice was firm but gentle, and when he carefully touched her arm above the break, his hands were surprisingly tender. "This needs to be set properly or it will heal wrong. Come on, I am taking you to the doctor." "But we just met, and this is not how I wanted to arrive, Miss Emerson." Vincent looked directly into her eyes, and the kindness she saw there nearly undid her completely. "None of that matters. You are hurt, and I am going to make sure you get proper care. We can worry about everything else after." He guided her down the street with a hand on her good elbow, moving slowly to match her pace. Zelda was acutely aware of the curious stares from townspeople watching from doorways and windows. This was certainly not the dignified arrival she had imagined during the long journey west. She had pictured stepping off the stagecoach in her best dress, meeting Vincent with a calm smile, perhaps having a quiet conversation over coffee to begin their acquaintance. Instead, she was pale and sweating, her dress dusty from travel, and her arm throbbing with every heartbeat. The doctor's office was a small building near the end of the street, with a painted sign that read Miller Medical Services. Vincent pushed open the door and called out, "Doc, you here?" A gray-haired man emerged from a back room, wiping his hands on a cloth. He was probably in his 60s, with sharp blue eyes that immediately assessed Zelda's condition. "Broken arm, looks like it," Vincent confirmed. "Bring her back here." The doctor led them into an examination room that smelled of carbolic acid and something medicinal that Zelda could not identify. There was a padded table in the center, surrounded by cabinets filled with bottles and instruments. "I am Dr. Miller. Let us take a look at what we have got here." Zelda sat on the table as directed, and Dr. Miller carefully examined her arm. She could not help the small sounds of pain that escaped her throat as he probed the injury, and she saw Vincent's hands clench into fists at his sides. "It is broken, all right," Dr. Miller confirmed. "Clean break of the ulna, maybe the radius too. I will need to set it and splint it. This is going to hurt considerable, miss, but it has to be done." "I understand," Zelda whispered. "Vincent, I am going to need you to hold her steady," the doctor said. "Can you do that?" "Of course." Vincent moved to stand beside Zelda, positioning himself so she could lean against him if needed. "Whatever you need me to do." Dr. Miller prepared his materials, laying out splints and bandages on a side table. "Miss, I want you to know that I am going to give you some laudanum for the pain, but it will still hurt when I set the bone. Vincent is going to help keep you still. Are you ready?" Zelda nodded, not trusting her voice. Dr. Miller administered the laudanum, and within a few minutes, the world took on a fuzzy, distant quality. The pain was still there, but somehow less immediate. She felt Vincent's solid presence beside her, his hand coming to rest gently on her good shoulder. "I have got you," he said quietly, just for her. "You are doing fine." Then Dr. Miller took hold of her arm, and despite the laudanum, the pain when he manipulated the broken bone was extraordinary. Zelda cried out, unable to stop herself, and Vincent's arm came around her shoulders, supporting her weight as she swayed. She found herself pressed against his chest, breathing in the scent of leather and soap, and something that was uniquely him, focusing on that instead of the agony in her arm. "Almost done," Dr. Miller said, working quickly and efficiently. "There we go. That is set properly now." He began wrapping the splint, securing it with careful precision. Zelda's vision swam, and she realized she was still leaning heavily against Vincent. She should pull away, should maintain proper distance from this man she had just met, but she could not seem to make her body cooperate. The laudanum was making everything feel slow and thick, like moving through honey. "Easy," Vincent murmured, his voice a low rumble against her ear. "Just rest. You are all right now." "I am sorry," Zelda managed. "This is not what you expected. Stop apologizing." There was no anger in his tone, only a gentle firmness. "Accidents happen. None of this is your fault." Dr. Miller finished securing the splint and stepped back to examine his work. "That should heal in about 6 to 8 weeks, assuming you keep it immobilized and take care of it. No heavy lifting, no strain on that arm. I will want to check it in a week to make sure it is healing properly." "Thank you, doctor," Zelda said, her words slightly slurred from the medication. "She is going to be groggy from the laudanum for a few hours," Dr. Miller told Vincent. "Best get her somewhere she can rest, and she will need help with most tasks until that arm heals. It is her left arm, which is fortunate if she is right-handed, but she will still need assistance with dressing, bathing, cooking, all of that." The reality of her situation crashed over Zelda like cold water, cutting through even the laudanum's haze. She was supposed to be Vincent's wife, supposed to run his household and help with whatever work needed doing. Instead, she was going to be completely dependent on him for weeks. They were not even married yet, and she had become a burden. "I am so sorry," she said again, tears spilling down her cheeks. "This is not what you paid for. I understand if you want to send me back to Boston." Vincent's expression turned thunderous, though she sensed the anger was not directed at her. "I am not sending you anywhere. You are hurt, and you need help, and that is exactly what you are going to get. I did not bring you all this way to abandon you the moment things got difficult. But the marriage can wait until you are healed and feeling better. Right now, I am taking you to my ranch and you are going to rest and recover. We can figure everything else out as we go." Zelda wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could manage, but the truth was she could barely sit upright. The pain and shock and laudanum had left her weak and shaking. "Thank you," she whispered. Vincent paid Dr. Miller and then carefully helped Zelda to her feet. She swayed and he steadied her with an arm around her waist. "Can you walk?" "I think so." But her first step proved her wrong, and she would have fallen if Vincent had not been holding her. Without a word, he swept her up into his arms, cradling her against his chest with her injured arm supported carefully between them. "I have got you. Just hold on." Under any other circumstances, being carried through the streets of Sierra Vista by a man she had just met would have been mortifying. But Zelda was too exhausted and pain-addled to care. She let her head rest against Vincent's shoulder and closed her eyes, focusing on the steady rhythm of his heartbeat and the sure confidence of his stride. She was dimly aware of him stopping to speak with the stagecoach driver, presumably to collect her trunk, and then he was lifting her up into a wagon. He settled her on the bench seat, then climbed up beside her and took the reins. The wagon lurched into motion, and Zelda bit back a whimper as the movement jarred her arm. "Sorry," Vincent said. "I will go as smooth as I can, but the road out to the ranch is rough in places. It is all right." Zelda opened her eyes to look at the landscape rolling past. They were heading out of town, into open country dotted with scrub brush and cacti. The mountains loomed larger now, their peaks still holding snow despite the summer heat in the valley. It was beautiful in a harsh, unforgiving way that was utterly different from Boston's gentle hills and green forests. "Tell me about yourself," Vincent said after a few minutes of silence. "Your letters mention that your parents died in a fire." Zelda swallowed hard. She had not talked about this with anyone in months, had tried to push the memories away. But something about Vincent's steady presence made her want to open up. It was last November. They ran a boarding house on Hanover Street. A lamp got knocked over in the night and the whole building went up. They got most of the boarders out, but the smoke overcame them before they could get out themselves. "I am sorry. That must have been terrible." "It was." Zelda's voice was barely above a whisper. "I was not there when it happened. I was staying with a friend across town. By the time I heard and got there, it was too late. The building was gone and my parents with it." "Were you close to them?" "Yes. They were good people, kind and hardworking. The boarding house was not much, but they made it a home for people who needed one." Zelda felt tears threatening again and blinked them back. "After they died, I had nothing. The boarding house was rented, so I lost that. I had been helping them run it, so I had no other employment. I stayed with my friend for a while, but I could not impose on her charity forever. That is when I saw your advertisement. Vincent was quiet for a moment, his hands steady on the reins. I am glad you answered it. I know this is not how either of us imagined things starting, but I am still glad you are here. Why did you place the advertisement? Zelda asked, curious despite her exhaustion. Your letters were kind, but you did not say much about yourself. There is not much to tell. I am 30 years old and I have been ranching here for the past 5 years. Built the place up from nothing, and now I've got a good herd and enough land to make it work. But ranching is hard, lonely work, and I realized I wanted someone to share it with, someone to come home to at the end of the day. I looked around Sierra Vista, but the single women here were either too young or already spoken for, and the idea of marrying someone I did not know just because she happened to be available did not sit right with me. So I placed the advertisement, hoping to find someone who wanted the same things I did. A home, a partnership, maybe a family eventually. His words were simple and honest, and they touched something deep in Zelda's heart. This was what she wanted too. After her parents died, she had felt adrift, alone in a way that went beyond physical solitude. She wanted to belong somewhere again, to have a place and a purpose and someone who cared whether she lived or died. That is what I want too, she said softly. I want a home again. I want to matter to someone. Vincent glanced at her, and the warmth in his eyes made her breath catch. You matter, Zelda. You mattered the moment I read your first letter, and you matter now, broken arm and all. They drove in comfortable silence after that, and Zelda let herself relax into the laudanum's fog. The pain in her arm was a constant presence, but bearable now that the bone was set. She found herself stealing glances at Vincent, taking in his strong profile and the capable way he handled the horses. He was handsome in a rugged, weathered way that came from years of outdoor work, and there was a gentleness about him that contrasted with his obvious strength. The ranch appeared gradually, materializing out of the empty landscape like a mirage. There was a house, larger than Zelda had expected, built of wood with a covered porch running along the front. A barn stood nearby, along with several smaller outbuildings and a system of corrals holding horses. A windmill turned lazily in the breeze, and she could hear the sound of water splashing into a trough. This is it, Vincent said, and there was pride in his voice. The O-Bar Ranch. I know it is not fancy, but it is mine. Ours now, I suppose. It is wonderful, Zelda said honestly. She had expected something much more primitive, perhaps a single-room cabin. This was a real home, the kind of place someone could build a life. Vincent pulled the wagon up to the house and set the brake. Let me help you down. He came around to her side and lifted her down carefully, then guided her up the porch steps and through the front door. The interior was dim and cool after the bright sunshine, and as Zelda's eyes adjusted, she took in a spacious main room with a stone fireplace, comfortable-looking furniture, and windows that let in plenty of light. A kitchen area occupied one end, and doorways led to what she assumed were bedrooms. The main bedroom is through there, Vincent said, pointing to the largest doorway. That is where you will sleep. I will take the smaller room. I cannot take your room, Zelda protested. This is your house. And you are my guest, at least until we figure out what we are doing about the marriage. Besides, the main bedroom has a bigger bed, which will be more comfortable for you while your arm heals. His tone brooked no argument. Come on, let me get you settled. He led her into the bedroom, which was indeed spacious, with a large bed covered in a colorful quilt, a wardrobe, and a dresser with a mirror above it. Windows on 2 walls provided cross ventilation, and Zelda could see the mountains framed in the distance. "This is lovely," she said. "I will get your trunk from the wagon in a bit, but right now you need to rest. Can you manage on your own, or do you need help?" Zelda looked down at herself, still wearing her travel dress, dusty and wrinkled from the long journey. The idea of trying to undress with one arm was daunting, but the idea of having Vincent help her was even more overwhelming. They were not married, were barely acquainted, and it would be completely inappropriate. "I will manage," she said, though she had no idea how. Vincent studied her for a moment, then nodded. "All right. I will be just outside if you need anything. Call out if you do." He left, closing the door behind him, and Zelda was alone for the first time since the accident. She sank down onto the edge of the bed, suddenly overwhelmed by everything that had happened. Just this morning, she had been on the stagecoach, nervous but excited about meeting Vincent and starting her new life. Now her arm was broken, she was fuzzy with laudanum, and she had no idea what was going to happen next. She tried to unbutton her dress, but quickly realized it was impossible with one hand. The buttons ran down the back, and even the ones she could reach required the fine motor control that she did not have in her current state. After several minutes of fumbling, she gave up and just lay back on the bed, her injured arm supported on a pillow. She would rest for a moment, she told herself, and then try again. She was asleep within seconds. When Zelda woke, the light slanting through the windows was golden with late afternoon sun, and the room was warmer than before. She blinked, disoriented, before the pain in her arm reminded her where she was and what had happened. She was still wearing her travel dress, still lying on top of the covers, and her mouth was dry as cotton. A soft knock came at the door. "Miss Emerson, are you awake?" "Yes," Zelda called out, her voice hoarse. Vincent opened the door, carrying a tray with a glass of water and a plate of food. "I thought you might be hungry. You slept through lunch and it is nearly dinner time." Zelda struggled to sit up, and Vincent quickly set the tray on the dresser and came to help her, propping pillows behind her back so she could lean comfortably. "Thank you. How are you feeling?" He handed her the glass of water and she drank gratefully. "Sore. The laudanum has worn off, I think. Doc Miller sent some more with us. I can give you a dose if the pain is bad." Zelda considered. The pain was definitely present, a deep ache in her arm that sharpened with any movement, but it was not the acute agony of before. "I think I will wait. I do not like how fuzzy it made me feel." "All right, but let me know if you change your mind." Vincent picked up the plate, which held sliced bread, cheese, and some kind of dried meat. "I am not much of a cook, but I can manage the basics. Usually I make do with simple meals, though I was planning to do better once you arrived." "This is perfect," Zelda assured him. She was suddenly ravenous, and the simple food tasted wonderful. Vincent helped her with the bread when she struggled to hold it with one hand, tearing it into manageable pieces without comment or fuss. "I brought your trunk in," he said. "I did not want to go through your things, but I thought you might want something more comfortable to wear. If you tell me what to look for, I can get it for you." The idea of Vincent going through her undergarments made Zelda blush furiously. "I appreciate that, but I do not think I can change clothes by myself. The buttons on this dress are impossible with one hand." Vincent looked uncomfortable for the first time since they had met. "That is a problem. There are not any women close by who could help. The nearest neighbor is Old Man Patterson, and he is a widower who lives alone. In town there are women, but it is a fair distance to go back." "I cannot stay in these clothes for 8 weeks, Zelda said, trying not to sound as distressed as she felt. "Perhaps you could just help with the buttons. You could face away, and I could tell you when it was decent for you to turn around." Vincent's ears turned red, but he nodded. "If that is all right with you, I can do that. I want you to be comfortable." They worked out a system, Vincent facing the wall while Zelda directed him to the trunk and told him which items to pull out. She selected a simple cotton nightgown, one that buttoned in the front and would be easy to manage with one hand. Then Vincent carefully unbuttoned the back of her dress, his fingers surprisingly deft despite the awkwardness of the situation. "All right, that is done," he said, keeping his face turned firmly to the wall. "Can you manage from here?" "Yes, thank you." Zelda waited until he left the room before struggling out of her dress and into the nightgown. It took far longer than it should have, and by the time she was finished, she was sweating and her arm was throbbing. But she felt more human in clean clothes, even if it was just a nightgown. She opened the door to find Vincent waiting in the main room, staring out the window at the mountains. "I am decent now." He turned, and his expression softened when he saw her. "Better, much. Thank you for your patience." "It is not patience, it is just common sense. You need help, and I am the one here to provide it." He gestured to the chair by the fireplace. "Do you feel up to sitting with me for a while? You have been in that room all day, and I thought you might like a change of scene." Zelda nodded, and Vincent helped her settle into the chair, making sure her arm was supported. He took the other chair, and for a few moments they sat in comfortable silence, watching the light fade from the sky. Zelda found herself studying him when she thought he was not looking. He had changed from his earlier dusty clothes into clean trousers and a shirt, and his dark hair was still damp, suggesting he had washed up. He was a handsome man, she decided, but more than that, he was kind. That kindness, the way he had taken care of her without complaint or resentment, meant more than good looks ever could. "Tell me about the ranch," she said. "What do you raise here?" "Cattle mostly, though I have got a small herd of horses too." "The land is good for grazing, and there is water from the creek that runs through the north section. I sell beef to the army fort about 20 miles from here and to the markets in Tucson. It is a good living, though it is hard work. I've got 2 hands who work for me, Miguel and his son Carlos. They live in a bunkhouse about a quarter-mile from here. Good men, reliable. Do they know about me?" I told them I was expecting a bride. They are pleased about it, actually. Miguel's wife died a few years back, and I think he worries about me being alone out here. Vincent smiled slightly. "He has been after me to marry for a while now. What will you tell them about my arm, the truth? That you were hurt in an accident and you are healing. They will understand." Vincent leaned forward, resting his forearms on his knees. "Zelda, I want you to know something. I understand this is not how either of us planned for this to go. We were supposed to meet, get to know each other a bit, and then decide if we wanted to go through with the marriage. Instead, you are hurt and dependent on me, and that changes things. I do not want you to feel pressured into anything. Once your arm heals, if you decide you want to go back to Boston, I will pay for your passage and give you enough money to get started again. No hard feelings, no obligations." His words should have been reassuring, but instead they filled Zelda with a strange panic. "Do you want me to leave?" "No." Vincent's answer was immediate and firm. "No, I want you to stay, but I want you to stay because you want to, not because you feel trapped or obligated." "I do not have anything to go back to in Boston," Zelda said quietly. "No family, no home, no prospects. I came here hoping for a fresh start, hoping to build something new. My broken arm does not change that. It changes the timeline, though. We were supposed to have time to court properly, to see if we suited each other. Now you are living in my house, and I am seeing you in your nightgown, and we are skipping over all the usual steps." Zelda felt her cheeks heat, but she met his eyes steadily. "I think we are getting to know each other in a different way. A more honest way, perhaps. You are seeing me at my worst, vulnerable and needy. And you have been nothing but kind and patient. That tells me more about your character than a dozen formal courtship visits ever could." Vincent held her gaze, and something passed between them, a wordless understanding that made Zelda's heart beat faster. "I am seeing someone brave and strong, who apologizes for things that are not her fault and tries to take care of herself even when she needs help. That tells me plenty about you too." They sat together as the room grew dark, talking about inconsequential things. Vincent told her about the ranch, about the challenges of building a life in this harsh country, about the beauty of the desert that became apparent once you learned to see it. Zelda talked about Boston, about the bustle of city life, about the differences between this place and everything she had known before. Finally, Vincent rose and lit a lamp, filling the room with warm, golden light. "You should get some rest. Tomorrow I will see about getting some help around here, someone who can assist you with the things I cannot." "I hate being such a burden," Zelda said, unable to keep the frustration from her voice. "You are not a burden. You are hurt and you need help, and that is completely different." Vincent came to her chair and offered his hand to help her up. "Come on, let me get you settled for the night." He walked her to the bedroom and waited while she used the chamber pot behind a screen in the corner, then helped her into bed, making sure her arm was positioned comfortably. "I will leave the door open a bit, so call out if you need anything during the night." "Thank you, Vincent, for everything." He paused in the doorway, his tall frame silhouetted against the lamplight from the main room. "You are welcome. Sleep well, Zelda," but sleep did not come easily. Zelda lay in the unfamiliar bed, listening to the sounds of the ranch at night. Somewhere in the distance, cattle lowed. The wind whispered around the corners of the house, and she could hear Vincent moving around in the other room, his footsteps heavy on the wooden floor. She thought about everything that had happened, about how drastically her life had changed in just a single day. When she finally slept, she dreamed of fire, of flames consuming the boarding house while she stood helpless and screaming. She woke with a gasp, her heart pounding and tears on her cheeks, momentarily disoriented in the darkness. The door opened and Vincent appeared carrying a lamp. "Zelda, I heard you cry out. Are you all right?" "Just a nightmare," she managed, trying to get her breathing under control. "I am sorry I woke you. Do not apologize." Vincent set the lamp on the dresser and sat carefully on the edge of the bed. "Do you want to talk about it?" It was about the fire. "I dream about it sometimes, about watching my parents die and not being able to save them." "That must have been terrifying." "It was. It still is in some ways. I feel like I lost more than my parents that night. I lost my sense of safety, my belief that the world was a fundamentally good place. Everything changed." Vincent was quiet for a moment, then said, "My father died when I was 16. He was working on a barn raising, and the beam he was standing on broke. He fell 20 feet and broke his neck. It was instant," they said, "no pain. But I watched it happen, and for years after I could not stop seeing it in my mind. The way he fell, the sound when he hit the ground, the stillness afterward. I am so sorry. My point is, I understand something of what you are feeling. Those kinds of losses change you. But they do not have to destroy you. You can build a new life, find new people to care about, create new reasons to believe the world is good. It does not erase what you lost, but it gives you something to hold on to." His words touched something deep in Zelda's heart, and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "I want that so much. I want to feel safe again, to belong somewhere." "You are safe here," Vincent said quietly. "I promise you that. As long as you are on this ranch, nothing is going to hurt you." "How can you promise that? You barely know me." "Maybe not, but I know enough, and I take my commitments seriously. You came here to be my wife, and even though circumstances have changed, I am committed to taking care of you and keeping you safe. That is not going to change." Zelda looked up at him, This man who had entered her life only hours ago but who was already becoming something more than a stranger. In the lamplight, his face was all planes and shadows, strong and handsome and infinitely trustworthy. She felt something shift in her chest, a small crack in the walls she had built around her heart after her parents died. "Thank you," she whispered. Vincent reached out and gently brushed a tear from her cheek, the touch feather light and careful. "Try to get some more sleep. I will leave my door open, so just call out if you need anything." After he left, Zelda found herself touching her cheek where his fingers had been, marveling at the tenderness of the gesture. She had expected many things from this arrangement, but she had not expected genuine kindness, had not expected to feel this strange pull toward a man she had just met. As she drifted back to sleep, she thought that maybe, just maybe, she had made the right choice in coming west. The next morning, Zelda woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and the smell of coffee. Her arm ached, a constant reminder of her injury, but the sharp edge of pain had dulled to something more manageable. She lay still for a moment, listening to sounds from the main room. Someone was moving around, and she heard low voices in conversation. Using her good hand, she managed to sit up and swing her legs over the side of the bed. Standing made her head swim briefly, but it passed, and she made her way carefully to the door. In the main room, she found Vincent talking to two men she did not recognize. All three turned as she appeared. "Good morning," Vincent said, his face brightening. "I hope we did not wake you. This is Miguel and Carlos, my ranch hands. Miguel, Carlos, this is Miss Zelda Emerson." The older man, Miguel, was probably in his 50s with weathered brown skin and kind eyes. He swept off his hat and nodded respectfully. "Miss Emerson, it is a pleasure. Vincent told us about your accident. We are very sorry." His son Carlos was younger, maybe in his mid-20s, with his father's eyes and a ready smile. "Welcome to the Bar Ranch, miss. If there is anything we can do to help, you just say the word." "Thank you both," Zelda said, acutely aware that she was standing there in her nightgown with her hair undone. "I apologize for my appearance." "No apology needed," Miguel said firmly. "You are injured. We understand." "I was just explaining the situation," Vincent said. "Miguel's sister lives in Sierra Vista, and she has agreed to come out and help for a few weeks. Her name is Rosa, and she is a widow with grown children, so she has the time. She will be able to help you with bathing, dressing, all the things you need." Relief flooded through Zelda. The thought of having another woman around, someone who could help with the intimate tasks that Vincent could not, was enormously comforting. "That would be wonderful. Please thank her for me." "She is happy to do it," Miguel assured her. "She will be here this afternoon. In the meantime, is there anything you need? Just some breakfast if it is not too much trouble." "Already made," Vincent said. "Sit down and I will bring it over." Zelda settled into the chair by the fireplace, and Vincent brought her a plate of eggs and bacon, along with a cup of coffee. The food was simple but good, and she ate hungrily while the men talked about ranch business. It felt domestic and comfortable, like she was already part of the household rather than an interloper. After breakfast, Miguel and Carlos headed out to work, and Vincent helped Zelda wash her face and hands with water from the pitcher in the bedroom. His hands were gentle but capable, and Zelda found herself relaxing into his care, letting him help her with the braid that kept her long brown hair out of the way. "You are good at this," she commented as he worked her hair into a simple plait. "I told you, my father died when I was young. My mother needed help after that, and I learned to do all sorts of things. She passed 5 years ago, which is part of why I came west. Too many memories back in Missouri, too much grief. I needed a fresh start too. I am sorry about your mother. She lived a good life and she did not suffer at the end. That is something to be grateful for." Vincent tied off the braid with a ribbon from her trunk. There, that should hold for now. The day passed slowly. Vincent had work to do around the ranch, but he checked on Zelda frequently, bringing her water and helping her move from room to room when she got tired of sitting in one place. She insisted on sitting in the main room rather than staying in the bedroom, wanting to feel like she was part of the household rather than an invalid tucked away out of sight. In the late afternoon, a wagon arrived carrying a plump, cheerful woman who swept into the house like a warm breeze. "You must be Miss Emerson. I am Rosa, and I am here to help." Rosa was probably in her early 50s, with glossy black hair streaked with gray and a smile that lit up her whole face. She immediately took charge, shooing Vincent outside and helping Zelda with a much-needed bath, working carefully around the splint. It was heaven to be clean again, and Rosa's matter-of-fact competence made the whole process far less embarrassing than Zelda had feared. "Now then," Rosa said, helping Zelda into a clean dress that buttoned in the front. "Let me look at you properly. Miguel said you were a mail-order bride for Vincent." "Yes. We were supposed to meet properly and then decide about the marriage, but then I broke my arm. And now you are stuck here, dependent on a man you do not know. That must be difficult." "Vincent has been very kind," Zelda said. "He has not made me feel like a burden at all." "Vincent is a good man," Rosa agreed. "I have known him since he first came to the area. He worked hard to build this ranch, and he has always been fair and decent with everyone. He will make a good husband if that is what you decide." "You think he still wants to marry me, now that I am injured and useless?" Rosa's expression turned fierce. "You are not useless. You are hurt, which is entirely different. And if I know Vincent at all, your injury has probably only made him more determined to take care of you. He is the type of man who needs to be needed, if you understand what I mean." Zelda thought about the way Vincent had carried her to the doctor, the way he had sat with her through the pain of having her arm set, the way he checked on her constantly throughout the day. "I think I do understand. Good. Now, let us get some proper food cooking." Men left to themselves live on bacon and beans, but you need better nourishment to heal properly. Rosa set to work in the kitchen, and Zelda watched, offering one-handed assistance where she could. The older woman chatted constantly, filling Zelda in on the gossip from Sierra Vista, the personalities of the people she would be meeting, the history of the area. It was comforting, this stream of ordinary information, making Zelda feel more connected to her new home. When Vincent came in for dinner, his face lit up at the sight of food on the table and two women bustling around the kitchen. "Rosa, you are a miracle worker. And you are a charmer, but it will not work on me. Sit down and eat before it gets cold." The three of them sat together around the table, and it felt like family, Zelda thought, like coming home after a long absence. The conversation flowed easily, and she found herself laughing at Rosa's stories about her children and grandchildren. When dinner was done, Rosa insisted on cleaning up, and Vincent took Zelda out onto the porch to watch the sunset. The sky was an explosion of color, orange and pink and purple painted across the horizon. The air had cooled with the evening, and a light breeze carried the scent of sage. Zelda sat in a chair while Vincent leaned against the porch railing, and they watched the day end in comfortable silence. "This is beautiful," Zelda said softly. "I have never seen sunsets like this. It is one of the best things about living out here. Every evening is different, and every evening is spectacular." Vincent turned to look at her. "How are you feeling?" "Better. Rosa helped me bathe and dress, and having another woman here makes things easier, but I am still frustrated by how helpless I am." "You are not helpless. You are injured. There is a difference. You keep saying that, but I feel helpless. I came here to be a help to you, to run your household and support you, and instead I am nothing but extra work." Vincent crossed the porch and crouched down in front of her chair so they were eye to eye. "Listen to me carefully. You are not extra work. You are a person who is hurt and needs help, and I am honored to be the one to provide it. Do you understand? But why? You do not even know me. Maybe not completely, but I know enough. I know you are brave, because you traveled 2,000 miles to start a new life with a stranger. I know you are strong, because you have survived losses that would break many people. I know you are kind, because Rosa told me you insisted on helping in the kitchen even though you should be resting. And I know you are beautiful, though that is just a bonus." Zelda felt her breath catch. "You think I am beautiful? Of course I do. Have you looked in a mirror lately?" Vincent's smile was gentle. "Zelda, I want you to stop worrying about being a burden and just focus on healing. We have time to figure out everything else. There is no rush. But you wanted a wife, someone to help with the ranch. I wanted a partner, someone to share my life with, and I still want that. But I would rather have you healthy and happy than forcing yourself to work before you are ready. The ranch will survive. What matters is you." His words settled into Zelda's chest, warm and solid. She reached out with her good hand and touched his cheek, marveling at the scratch of stubble under her palm. "Thank you for being so patient with me." Vincent turned his head slightly, pressing a kiss to her palm, and the gesture was so tender that Zelda felt tears prick her eyes. "It is not patience. It is just caring about you." They stayed like that for a long moment, connected by touch and gaze, and Zelda felt the walls around her heart crack a little more. She had come west expecting an arrangement, a practical partnership based on mutual need. But this tenderness and care, this was something more. This was the beginning of something real. Rosa stayed for dinner and then headed back to town, promising to return the next day. Vincent walked her out to her wagon, and Zelda listened to their voices murmuring in the twilight. When Vincent came back inside, he found her still sitting on the porch, wrapped in the fading light. "Ready for bed?" he asked. "Not quite yet. It is so peaceful out here." Vincent settled into the other chair and they sat together, watching the stars emerge one by one in the darkening sky. The silence between them was comfortable, and Zelda found herself thinking about the future, about what it would mean to stay here, to marry this man, to make a life in this harsh, beautiful place. "Vincent," she said after a while, "when I am healed, when my arm is better and I can actually be useful, can we talk about the marriage then? Can we decide if this is really what we both want? Of course. That is what I have been saying all along. There is no pressure, no rush. We will take our time and make sure we are making the right decision." "Good." Zelda hesitated, then added, "But I think you should know, I am already fairly certain what my answer will be." Vincent turned to look at her, his expression unreadable in the dim light. "And what is that?" "I think you know." Zelda smiled, feeling suddenly shy. "But I am going to make you wait for the official answer until I am healed. It is only fair since you are being so patient with me." Vincent laughed, the sound warm and genuine. "Fair enough, I can wait." They sat together until full dark, and then Vincent helped Zelda inside and settled her for the night. As she lay in bed, listening to him moving around in the other room, Zelda thought about how much had changed in just 2 days. She had arrived broken and afraid, expecting nothing but practical arrangements and perhaps eventual affection. Instead, she had found kindness and care, and the first stirrings of something that felt very much like love. The days began to fall into a pattern. Rosa arrived each morning and helped Zelda with the tasks she could not manage alone. They cooked together, cleaned together, and slowly Zelda began to feel useful despite her injury. Rosa taught her about the local plants and how to use them, about the rhythms of ranch life. about the history of the area and the people who lived there. Vincent worked from dawn until dusk, managing the cattle and horses, repairing fences, maintaining the buildings and equipment that kept the ranch running. But he always made time to check on Zelda, to sit with her at meals, to talk with her in the evenings. They learned about each other gradually, sharing stories and dreams and fears, building a foundation of friendship that Zelda sensed would eventually become something more. A week after her arrival, Dr. Miller came out to the ranch to check on her arm. He examined it carefully, nodding in satisfaction. "It is healing well. You are being careful with it." "Yes, doctor, Vincent makes sure I do not overdo things." "Good. Keep the splint on for another 5 weeks and then we will see where we are, but this is promising." After the doctor left, Vincent found Zelda in the kitchen where she was helping Rosa prepare bread dough. "Good news," he said, "it is healing well. I am glad. You have been following his instructions perfectly." Vincent snagged a piece of dough and popped it in his mouth, earning a swat from Rosa. "Out of my kitchen, you bandit. This bread is for dinner, not for snacking." Vincent laughed and retreated, and Zelda found herself smiling at the easy affection between them. This was what she had been missing, she realized. Not just a home or a husband, but a sense of belonging, of being part of something larger than herself. The ranch was becoming her home. Rosa and Miguel and Carlos were becoming her friends, and Vincent was becoming something she did not quite have words for yet. That night, after Rosa had gone home and dinner was finished, Vincent suggested they sit outside again. The evenings had become Zelda's favorite time, when the work of the day was done and they could just be together, talking or sitting in comfortable silence. "I have been thinking," Vincent said, leaning against the porch railing, "about what happens after your arm heals. You said you wanted to talk about the marriage then, and I agree. But I have been thinking about what I want from a marriage, and I realized I should share that with you now, so you can decide if it is something you want too." "All right," Zelda said, curious and a little nervous. "I do not want a marriage of convenience, where we live separate lives under the same roof. I want a real partnership, someone I can talk to and rely on, someone who will talk to me and rely on me in return. I want affection and companionship and eventually love, if we are lucky enough to find it. And I want a family, children if we are blessed with them. But most of all, I want honesty. I want us to be able to tell each other the truth, even when it is hard." Vincent paused, looking out at the dark landscape. "My parents had that kind of marriage. They were partners in every sense of the word, and they loved each other deeply. When my father died, my mother was devastated, but she never regretted a moment of their life together. That is what I want, Zelda. That is what I am hoping for." Zelda felt her heart swell with emotion. "That is what I want too. My parents had the same kind of marriage, and growing up surrounded by that love made me believe it was possible. But after they died, I started to think maybe I would never find it for myself, that maybe I would have to settle for something less." "You do not have to settle. Not with me." Vincent crossed the porch and knelt beside her chair again, taking her good hand in his. "I cannot promise that we will have what my parents had or what yours had. But I can promise that I will try my hardest to build that kind of partnership with you if you are willing to try too." "I am willing," Zelda whispered. "I am more than willing." Vincent raised her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles, his eyes never leaving hers. "Then we will take our time, get to know each other properly, and when your arm is healed we will make our decision. But I want you to know, I am already fairly certain what my answer will be too." Zelda smiled, feeling joy bubble up inside her. "Good. Then we understand each other." The weeks passed, and summer deepened into its full heat. Zelda's arm healed slowly, and she grew stronger and more capable despite the splint. She learned to cook the meals that Vincent liked, learned to manage the household with Rosa's guidance, learned the names of the horses and cattle and the layout of the ranch. She met the neighbors, attended a church service in town, and slowly began to feel like she belonged in this place. And through it all, her connection with Vincent deepened. They talked about everything, sharing their hopes and dreams and fears. Vincent told her about his childhood in Missouri, about the struggle to keep the family farm going after his father died, about his decision to come west and start fresh. Zelda talked about her life in Boston, about the joy and sorrow of helping her parents run the boarding house, about the terror and grief of losing them in the fire. They also shared lighter moments, laughing together over mishaps and mistakes, teasing each other gently, building a rapport that felt natural and easy. Vincent taught her to ride, patiently walking beside her horse until she felt confident enough to venture out on her own. Zelda taught him the songs her mother had sung, filling the house with music in the evenings. One morning, about 5 weeks after her arrival, Zelda woke to find her arm feeling different. The constant ache had faded to almost nothing, and when she flexed her fingers experimentally, the movement felt easier than before. Excitement bubbled up inside her, and she climbed out of bed, eager to tell Vincent. She found him in the barn, grooming one of the horses. He looked up as she entered, his face brightening. "Good morning. You are up early. My arm feels better. Really better, not just less painful. Do you think it has healed?" Vincent set down the brush and came to examine her arm, touching it gently through the splint. "Hard to say without removing the splint, and we should let Dr. Miller do that. But the timing is about right. He said 6 to 8 weeks, and it has been 5. We can ride into town today if you want, have him take a look." "Yes, please." They made the trip to Sierra Vista in the wagon, and Dr. Miller confirmed what Zelda had hoped. The bone had healed cleanly, and he carefully removed the splint, revealing an arm that looked pale and slightly thinner than the other but otherwise normal. "Flex it gently," Dr. Miller instructed. "It will be weak at first, and you will need to build the strength back up gradually, but barring any complications, you should have full use of it in a few weeks." Zelda carefully moved her arm, marveling at the freedom of movement after so many weeks of immobility. It felt strange and weak, but it worked, and that was what mattered. "Thank you, doctor. Thank you so much. Thank Vincent here. He made sure you followed my instructions and did not do anything foolish. That made all the difference." On the way back to the ranch, Zelda could not stop smiling. Vincent noticed and grinned at her. "Happy. Incredibly happy. I can use both hands again. I can get dressed by myself and cook properly and do all the things I have been unable to do. You have no idea how wonderful that feels. I think I have some idea, watching how frustrated you have been." When they arrived back at the ranch, Rosa was waiting with lunch prepared. She exclaimed over Zelda's healed arm and insisted on celebrating with a special dinner. Miguel and Carlos joined them that evening, and it felt like a family gathering, warm and loud and full of laughter. After everyone had left and the dishes were washed, Vincent took Zelda's hand and led her out to the porch. The sun was setting in its usual spectacular display, and they stood together, watching the sky turn to fire. "Your arm is healed," Vincent said quietly. "Which means it is time for that talk we have been putting off." Zelda's heart began to beat faster. "Yes, I suppose it is. I will go first if that is all right." Vincent turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. "Zelda, these past weeks have been some of the best of my life. Getting to know you, spending time with you, watching you become part of this place, it has been everything I hoped for and more. I know we started in an unusual way, with your injury forcing us together sooner than we might have otherwise, but I do not regret a moment of it." You are brave and kind and strong, and you make me laugh, and you make this house feel like a home. I want to marry you, Zelda. Not because of any arrangement or obligation, but because I have fallen in love with you, and I cannot imagine my life without you in it. Tears spilled down Zelda's cheeks, but they were tears of joy. I have fallen in love with you too. I did not expect to, did not think it was possible to fall in love so quickly. But you have been so kind, so patient, so genuinely good. You took care of me when I was hurt, never making me feel like a burden, always making me feel valued. And you have shared yourself with me, letting me see who you really are. I want to marry you, Vincent. I want to build a life with you here on this ranch. I want to be your partner and your wife and eventually the mother of your children. I want all of it. Vincent pulled her into his arms, careful of her still weak arm, and held her close. Zelda could hear his heart beating against her ear, strong and steady. I was so hoping you would say yes. Did you really doubt? Maybe a little. You could have anyone, and I am just a rancher in the middle of nowhere. Zelda pulled back enough to look up at him. You are not just anything. You are the man who carried me to the doctor when I was hurt, who sat with me through nightmares, who has shown me more kindness in 6 weeks than I have known in the past year. You are exactly who I want. Vincent cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away her tears. I love you, Zelda. I love you too. He kissed her then, gentle and sweet, and Zelda felt something inside her settle into place. This was where she was meant to be, with this man in this place. The broken arm that had seemed like such a disaster when she arrived had actually been a blessing, forcing them together, allowing them to build something real instead of going through the formal motions of courtship. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were smiling. When should we get married? Vincent asked. As soon as possible. I do not want to wait. Neither do I. We can go into town tomorrow and make arrangements with the minister. Would you like a big wedding or something small? Just us and whoever we want to invite as witnesses. I do not need anything fancy. Then that is what we will do. They spent the rest of the evening making plans, talking about the future, dreaming together about the life they would build. When it was time for bed, Vincent walked Zelda to her room as he had every night since her arrival. But this time he lingered in the doorway, reluctant to leave. 2 more nights, he said. Then you will be my wife, and I will not have to sleep in the other room anymore. Zelda blushed but did not look away. I am looking forward to that. Vincent grinned, kissed her once more, and then forced himself to step away. Sleep well, Zelda. I will see you in the morning. The next 2 days passed in a flurry of activity. They rode into town and made arrangements with the minister, inviting Rosa and her family, Miguel and Carlos, and a few other people they had become friends with. Rosa insisted on making a special dress for Zelda, working late into the night to create something beautiful from fabric purchased at the general store. On the morning of the wedding, Zelda woke with butterflies in her stomach. Rosa arrived early to help her dress and arrange her hair, chattering excitedly the whole time. The dress was simple but lovely, made of cream-colored cotton with lace at the collar and cuffs. Rosa had even managed to find a small veil, which she pinned carefully into Zelda's hair. You look beautiful, Rosa said, stepping back to admire her work. Vincent is a lucky man. I am the lucky one, Zelda replied. I came here with nothing, expecting nothing, and I found everything. The ceremony took place in the church in Sierra Vista, with the minister officiating and their small group of friends as witnesses. Vincent wore his best clothes, and when Zelda walked down the aisle toward him, the look on his face made her want to cry with happiness. He loved her, truly loved her, and she loved him in return. The vows were traditional, but when Vincent slipped the simple gold ring onto her finger and promised to love and cherish her, Zelda felt the truth of the words in every fiber of her being. This was real, this was forever, and she had never been more certain of anything in her life. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the minister said. "Vincent, you may kiss your bride." Vincent pulled Zelda into his arms and kissed her thoroughly, to the cheers and applause of their friends. When they finally broke apart, both of them were grinning like fools. "Mrs. Owens," Vincent said, trying out the name. "I like the sound of that," Zelda replied. They held a small celebration at the ranch afterward, with Rosa providing an enormous meal and everyone eating and laughing and celebrating late into the evening. When the guests finally left and Vincent and Zelda were alone, they stood together on the porch, watching the stars emerge. "How are you feeling?" Vincent asked, his arm around her waist, happy, nervous, excited, all of it at once. "Me too." Vincent turned her in his arms and kissed her forehead. "I love you, Zelda. I am going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret marrying me." "I could never regret this. You saved me, Vincent, not just my arm but my heart. I was so broken when I arrived here, so lost and alone, and you showed me that I could have a home again, that I could belong somewhere. You gave me back my life. You did the same for me. I did not realize how lonely I was until you arrived. This ranch felt empty before, like I was just going through the motions. But now it feels alive. You make everything better." They went inside together, and Vincent led Zelda to the bedroom that would now be theirs. He helped her out of her dress with gentle hands, taking his time, making her feel cherished. When they lay down together in the bed, holding each other in the darkness, Zelda felt complete in a way she had never experienced before. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too," Vincent replied. Always. The weeks turned to months, and Zelda settled fully into her new life. Her arm regained its strength, and she threw herself into the work of the ranch, helping with everything from cooking to caring for the animals. She and Vincent worked side by side, building their life together, and every day Zelda felt more certain that she had made the right choice. They talked about everything, sharing their thoughts and feelings with the honesty Vincent had said he wanted. They laughed together, worked together, and loved each other with a passion that surprised them both. Zelda had never imagined marriage could be like this combination of friendship and romance and partnership that made every day feel like an adventure. In the fall, Zelda realized she was pregnant. She told Vincent one evening as they sat together on the porch, watching another spectacular sunset. He was silent for a long moment, and then he let out a whoop of joy and swept her into his arms, spinning her around until she was laughing and begging him to put her down. "We are going to have a baby," he said, his voice full of wonder. "You are going to be a mother and I am going to be a father." "Are you happy?" Zelda asked, though she could see the answer in his eyes. "I am beyond happy. This is everything I wanted, everything I dreamed of. A family, a home, someone to share it all with." Vincent placed his hand gently on her still flat stomach. "Thank you, Zelda. Thank you for taking a chance on me, for coming west, for making my life complete. Thank you for being patient with me, for taking care of me when I was hurt, for showing me what real love looks like. I never could have imagined when I stepped off that stagecoach with a broken arm that 6 months later I would be here, married and happy and expecting a child. You gave me all of this." "We gave it to each other," Vincent corrected. "That is what partnership means." The winter passed and Zelda grew heavy with child. Vincent was attentive and careful, insisting she not overwork herself, bringing her little treats from town, talking to her belly in the evenings. Rosa came by regularly, offering advice and support, and Zelda felt surrounded by love and care. When the baby came in early spring, it was a long labor that left Zelda exhausted but exhilarated. Vincent stayed with her the whole time, holding her hand, wiping her forehead, encouraging her through the pain. And when the baby finally arrived, crying lustily, Dr. Miller announced, "It is a boy, a healthy baby boy." Vincent cut the cord with trembling hands, and then the baby was placed in Zelda's arms. She looked down at the tiny red face, the dark hair that was so like Vincent's, the little fists waving in the air, and felt her heart expand with love so fierce it was almost painful. "He is perfect," she whispered. "Just like his mother," Vincent said, sitting beside her on the bed and wrapping his arm around both of them. "What should we name him?" They had discussed names during the pregnancy, going back and forth on options. But now, looking at their son, Zelda knew exactly what felt right. "What about William, after your father?" Vincent's eyes filled with tears. "You would do that, of course. Your father was an important part of making you who you are. It feels right to honor him this way." "William Owens," Vincent said, testing the name. "I love it. Thank you, Zelda." They sat together, the three of them, as the sun rose outside the window and a new day began. Zelda thought about the journey that had brought her here, the broken arm that had seemed like such a disaster but had actually been the beginning of everything good in her life. If she had not been injured, she and Vincent might have gone through with the marriage out of obligation rather than love. They might have settled into a comfortable but passionless partnership, never finding the deep connection they now shared. Instead, the accident had forced them together, had stripped away all the formality and pretense, had allowed them to see each other at their most vulnerable. And in that vulnerability, they had found something precious, something real and lasting. "What are you thinking about?" Vincent asked, noticing her faraway expression. "About my broken arm, actually. About how I thought it was the worst possible thing that could have happened when I arrived. And now I think it was the best thing. It brought us together in a way nothing else could have. You had to take care of me, and I had to accept that care, and in doing so, we built something stronger than any conventional courtship could have created." Vincent kissed her temple. "I think you are right. I loved you from the moment you tried to apologize for being hurt, like it was somehow your fault. I saw your strength and your kindness, and I knew I wanted to spend my life with you. The broken arm just accelerated the process." Baby William made a small sound, and they both looked down at him, marveling at the tiny life they had created together. Zelda felt tears of joy on her cheeks, and Vincent wiped them away with gentle fingers. "Thank you for healing my heart," Zelda said softly. "I was so broken when I came here, so afraid I would never feel whole again. But you put me back together, piece by piece, with your patience and kindness and love." "You healed mine too," Vincent replied. "I did not realize how lonely I was, how much I needed someone to share my life with until you arrived. We healed each other, Zelda. That is what love does." The months passed, and William grew from a tiny baby into a laughing, active infant. Zelda and Vincent fell into the rhythms of parenthood, taking turns walking the floor at night, marveling over every milestone, and supporting each other through the challenges and joys of raising a child. Rosa became like a grandmother to William, spoiling him shamelessly and offering advice drawn from her own experience raising 6 children. Miguel and Carlos doted on the baby as well, and the ranch became a place filled with love and laughter and the happy chaos of family life. One evening, when William was about 6 months old, Zelda and Vincent sat on the porch as they had so many times before. William was asleep in his cradle inside, and the night was warm and peaceful. Vincent took Zelda's hand, running his thumb over her wedding ring. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "Leaving Boston, coming west, all of it? Never. Not for a single moment." Zelda leaned her head on his shoulder. "This is where I was meant to be, With you in this place building this life, I have everything I ever wanted and more than I ever dared to dream. Me too. I thought I was bringing a mail-order bride to help run the ranch. Instead, I found a partner, a lover, a best friend, the mother of my child. You are my everything, Zelda. They sat together in comfortable silence, listening to the sounds of the ranch settling down for the night. In the distance, a coyote called and one of the horses whinnied in response. The stars wheeled overhead, and the mountains stood as silent sentinels in the darkness. Zelda thought about the future stretching out before them, full of possibilities and promise. There would be more children, she hoped, brothers and sisters for William. There would be challenges too, the difficulties that came with ranching and raising a family in this harsh country. But she knew they could face anything together, the way they had faced everything so far. Vincent. She said quietly, "Yes. Do you remember what you said the night we decided to get married, about wanting the kind of partnership your parents had? I remember. I think we have it. This right here is what you were hoping for, what we both were hoping for." Vincent pulled her closer, kissing the top of her head. "You are right. This is exactly what I wanted. A real partnership built on love and trust and honesty. Thank you for giving me that, Zelda. Thank you for being willing to take a chance on a cowboy in the middle of nowhere. Thank you for catching me when I fell, for healing my broken arm and my broken heart, for showing me what real love looks like. I came here with nothing, and you gave me everything." They stayed on the porch until late, talking quietly about their plans and dreams. They would add onto the house eventually, they decided, to make room for the family they hoped to have. They would continue building the ranch, perhaps expanding the herd, buying more land if the opportunity arose. They would grow old here together, watching their children grow and eventually having grandchildren to spoil. But those were plans for the future. For now, they had this moment, this night, this life they had built together from the ashes of their separate griefs and losses. They had taken broken pieces and made something whole and beautiful, something that would last. Inside, William began to cry, and Zelda stood to go to him. Vincent followed, and together they tended to their son, working in the easy harmony they had developed over the months of marriage. When William was fed and changed and settled back to sleep, they climbed into bed together, curling up in each other's arms. "I love you," Vincent whispered in the darkness. "I love you too," Zelda replied. "Always and forever." As she drifted off to sleep, safe in her husband's arms with her son sleeping peacefully nearby, Zelda felt a contentment so deep it was almost overwhelming. She had come to Arizona territory broken in body and spirit, expecting nothing but a practical arrangement. Instead, she had found healing and home and a love that would last the rest of her life. The broken arm had brought her to Vincent, and Vincent had mended not just the bone but everything that had been fractured inside her. He had shown her that it was possible to start over, to build a new life from the ruins of the old, to find joy and love and purpose even after terrible loss. She had arrived as a mail-order bride, a stranger in a strange land. But now she was Zelda Owens, wife and mother, partner and friend, a woman who had found her place in the world and the love of her life. And it had all started with a broken arm and a cowboy kind enough to heal it. The years passed gently, full of the ordinary miracles of daily life. William grew into a sturdy toddler, then a curious child who followed his father around the ranch, learning everything Vincent could teach him. 2 years after William was born, Zelda gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl they named James and Catherine. The house was always full of noise and laughter, with children running in and out, and the chaos of family life filling every corner. Vincent expanded the ranch gradually, buying adjacent land when it became available, increasing the herd, building a reputation for quality cattle and fair dealing. Zelda managed the household with capable efficiency, but she also took on more responsibilities as the children grew, keeping the ranch's books and helping with business decisions. They were true partners in every sense of the word, just as Vincent had hoped from the beginning. Rosa remained a constant presence in their lives, a beloved grandmother figure who spoiled the children and provided wisdom and support to Zelda. Miguel and Carlos continued working the ranch, and Carlos eventually married a girl from town, bringing his own young family to live on the property. The Obar Ranch became a thriving community, a place where people took care of each other and worked together toward common goals. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Vincent surprised Zelda with a trip to Tucson, just the two of them, leaving the children in Rosa's capable care. They stayed in a proper hotel, ate in restaurants, and walked the streets hand in hand like courting sweethearts. On their last evening, they stood on the hotel balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson. 10 years, Vincent said, his arm around Zelda's waist. Can you believe it? Some days it feels like just yesterday that I arrived with my broken arm. Other days it feels like we have been together forever. Zelda leaned into him, savoring the moment. These have been the best years of my life. Mine too. Do you ever think about what would have happened if you had not broken your arm, if we had met under normal circumstances? I think about it sometimes. I think we still would have fallen in love eventually, but it might have taken longer. We might have been more guarded with each other, more careful. The broken arm forced us to be vulnerable right from the start, and I think that made all the difference. Vincent nodded. I agree. It stripped away all the pretense, all the careful courtship steps we might have gone through. We had to rely on each other immediately, and that built a foundation nothing else could have created. They stood together in silence for a while, and then Zelda said, I never thanked you properly, you know. For what? For everything. For taking care of me when I was hurt, for being patient while I healed, for building this life with me, for being exactly the man I needed, even when I did not know I needed him. Vincent turned her in his arms so they were face to face. You do not need to thank me. You gave me just as much, maybe more. You gave me a family, a home that is more than just a house, a reason to get up in the morning beyond just ranch work. You gave me love, Zelda, real love, and that is more valuable than anything else in the world. Zelda reached up and touched his face, tracing the lines that had appeared around his eyes over the years, the silver beginning to thread through his dark hair. They had both changed since that day she arrived in Sierra Vista, shaped by time and experience and the life they had built together. But the core of who they were and what they meant to each other remained constant. I love you, she said simply. More now than I did 10 years ago, if that is even possible. It is possible. I feel the same way. Love grows when you tend it, when you work at it every day. We have done that, Zelda. We have built something that will last. They kissed as the sun disappeared below the horizon. Two people who had found each other against the odds and created something beautiful from the broken pieces of their separate pasts. When they returned home to the ranch the next day, the children rushed out to greet them, and Zelda felt her heart swell with gratitude for all of it. The chaos and the love and the ordinary, extraordinary life she shared with Vincent. More years passed, bringing new joys and new challenges. The children grew older, each developing their own personality and interests. William showed a natural talent for ranching, spending every moment he could with Vincent and the cattle. James was more mechanically inclined, fascinated by how things worked and always tinkering with equipment. Catherine was artistic, filling notebooks with drawings and paintings of the ranch and the landscape around it. Zelda and Vincent guided them through childhood and into adolescence, providing support and discipline and unconditional love. There were difficult moments, as there are in any family, but the foundation they had built was strong enough to weather any storm. On the 20th anniversary of Zelda's arrival in Sierra Vista, Vincent planned a celebration at the ranch, inviting everyone they had come to know and care about over the years. The house and yard were full of people, eating and laughing and sharing stories. William, now a young man of 19, gave a toast that brought tears to Zelda's eyes. "My parents taught me what real love looks like," he said, raising his glass. "They showed me that marriage is not just about romance, though they have plenty of that. It is about partnership, about working together toward common goals, about supporting each other through good times and bad. My father always says that the best thing that ever happened to him was my mother breaking her arm the day she arrived, because it meant they had to rely on each other right from the start. I think that is true. They built something special, something rare, and I am grateful every day that they chose to build it together and to include me and my siblings in it." Vincent stood and pulled Zelda to her feet, holding her close as their friends and family applauded. 20 years ago, I was expecting a mail-order bride. Instead, I got a wife, a partner, the love of my life and the mother of my children. Best trade I ever made." Everyone laughed, and Zelda wiped away happy tears. 20 years ago, I arrived broken in body and spirit. Vincent healed both and gave me a life beyond anything I could have imagined. I thank God every day for that broken arm because it brought me here, to this place, to this man, to this life. The party continued late into the night, but eventually the guests departed and the children went to bed, leaving Vincent and Zelda alone on their beloved porch. The stars were out, brilliant in the clear desert sky, and a cool breeze brought the scent of sage and desert flowers. 20 years, Zelda said softly. It has gone by so fast, and yet every moment feels full. We have packed a lot of living into these 20 years. We have, and I would not change a thing. Zelda looked up at her husband, this man who had taken a chance on a mail-order bride and ended up with so much more. "You know what I realized today?" "What?" "I came here looking for a home, and I found that. But I also found healing, purpose, love, family, everything that makes life worth living. All because you saw past the broken arm to the person underneath. All because you were patient enough to let me heal at my own pace. All because you chose to build something real instead of settling for an arrangement." Vincent pulled her into his arms, holding her the way he had so many times over the years, with tenderness and strength and unwavering love. "I saw who you were from the very first moment. Brave, strong, kind, beautiful. The broken arm was just circumstance. What mattered was you, Zelda. It has always been you." They stood together in the starlight, two people who had come together under unusual circumstances and built a life that exceeded their wildest dreams. The mail-order bride and the cowboy who healed her, bound together by love and choice and the determination to build something that would last. Inside the house, their children slept safely. Around them, the ranch they had built together stood solid and prospering. Above them, the stars wheeled in their eternal dance. And between them, the love that had started with a broken arm and a stranger's kindness continued to grow, a testament to the power of compassion, patience, and the willingness to take a chance on love. Zelda had arrived in Sierra Vista, expecting nothing more than survival, a practical arrangement that would give her a place to live and work to do. Instead, she had found everything, a love story for the ages written in the ordinary moments of daily life, in shared work and laughter and tears, in the building of a family and a home and a partnership that would endure. Vincent had advertised for a bride, expecting someone to help run his household, someone to ease the loneliness of ranch life. Instead, he had found a soulmate, a woman who matched him in strength and determination, who brought light and laughter into his life, who gave him the family he had always dreamed of. They had both been broken in different ways when they met, Zelda in body and spirit from her losses, Vincent in his isolation and loneliness. But together, they had mended each other, healing old wounds and building something new and whole and beautiful. As they finally went inside to bed, walking hand in hand through the house they had made a home, Zelda sent up a silent prayer of gratitude. For the broken arm that had brought her to Vincent, for the patience and kindness that had allowed their love to grow, for the life they had built together and the years still to come. The mail-order bride had come with a broken arm. The cowboy had healed it, and in doing so had mended her broken heart too. And together, they had created a love story that would endure for all their days, a testament to the power of compassion, the strength of partnership, and the healing grace of true love. Their story, which had begun with pain and uncertainty, had become something beautiful and lasting, proving that sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected beginnings, and that love, when given the chance to grow, can heal even the deepest wounds and create joy beyond measure.